Hello, everyone. So since today's guest is from Switzerland, from French Switzerland, I thought it would be appropriate to start with a blooper in French. And it said règlement piscine, which means swimming pool rules. And it says in French, le non-respect du règlement entraîne l'exclusion, mouthful, which means basically the non-respect of rules leads to expulsion. But instead, it said it very clearly in English, anyone obeying the swimming pool rules may be required to leave. Not exactly what the French intended with that. So today's guest is Nadine Reichenthal. Nadine was a lecturer in entrepreneurship at the University of Geneva and Lausanne in Switzerland, where she developed accelerator programs. She's involved in numerous support structures for entrepreneurial projects as a trainer, coach, or expert in Switzerland and in emerging countries in Africa and Asia, mainly for the program of the International Trade Center, a joint agency of the World Trade Organization and the United Nations Conference on Trade and Development, which is UNCTAD, and for the international innovation programs such as UN Women and Créatela Impact. Nadine co-founded the entrepreneurship program Graines d'Entrepreneur for teenagers and participated in the implementation of the Federal Certificate for SME Managers by the validation of acquired education, originally intended for spouses of craftsmen. She is a member of the board of directors of Tank D in Luxembourg, a company active in bio-waste storage. She's a member of the founding board of BVA, a social reintegration company, and a member of the advisory board of Vaintree, a startup active in palm recognition. She provides international training programs and business coaching through her company, nadineconnect.ch. And CH, for people who don't know, is the abbreviation for Switzerland. Welcome, Nadine. Delighted that you've joined us today.
Thank you very much, Philip.
So perhaps you could start by telling us a bit about your background and how you acquired your expertise.
So my expertise is, in fact, in two ways. First, my academic background and what I have done in the last year. So as I am 68, you see, it's more or less 45 years of practice. So I had the chance to study economics. And just to understand what is macroeconomics, it means understanding, policies, international laws, and after the microeconomy to understand what is the company. And it means that today I can work on the level of a country, developing some businesses, and also how it is for normal people, how to do that. So just to go from very high level of economics from the country to what is going to happen with the people locally, that helps me to go, through the ladder from the bottom up to the up and down. And after, my career was in computer science, making, developing countries. And when I started, it was punched hole, the cards. And so so it means that, you have to go back to all that. And mostly I was working in what is called order to invoice system, understanding from customer to customer, from very small corporation to very big companies. That works like Société Générale de Surveillance, which is 100 countries in more than 20 business sectors. So it means when you have to put in place this type of system, you're ready to understand everything. And that's how I started to work in Africa, in Asia, Latin America, because we have to test the inspection module we wanted to put in place. And in the same time, after working on that, I also worked in what we call embedded software, the software you put in the satellite. So it means that when you have to do that, when they are 36,000 kilometers, if you didn't make the good test, it's no way you can take it back. So I developed a competency in testing scenario. And I'm still happy that quite nothing happened to my meteostat, which is still turning around the planet from 1981. So that I'm quite proud, of this scenario. And that helps me, you have to understand everything to make a computer program, to understand everything. So it helps me really to understand from the beginning to the last. And after I work in merger and acquisition, and to help, the company that was supposed to work together to put in place formal and informal data and flows to put them together. And then you have to understand how a company is working, which one is the best one. So it helps you to develop all this kind of, like the plug. You have the plug in the US like that, and we have the plug in Europe with 3, and you have to make something in between because electricity is everywhere, but then you have to make the adapter because you cannot change all the plug worldwide. So this is how my mindset was done, to adapt to situation, to help people communicate, even if they don't speak the same language, even if they don't do. So that's how I developed this kind of things. And after, due to something happening in September 11th, we had to change, the company had some problems. And then I had the opportunity to start to work with the federal program for innovation. It was really the program that Switzerland said that innovation, we don't have raw material, but we have brain. And let's use
we have what, please? Brains, yes.
So it means that we have to work on what we have, and that's the PhD students. Right. And just to say that we have to go from lab to market. So the idea was to teach this PhD student about how to develop business with what they have developed. And so that was the program, which was called Venture Lab. And so I was in charge of this program during 8 years to teach, train, coach, and develop all these kind of from lab to market project. So we have trained more or less 8,000 students. From that, 20% more or less develop a company. And we have still maybe 10 to 15% of them, we are still existing now. So it means that statistically, 75% of the startups will fail. And for me, that was really, a shame that due to the fact that people were selling product that nobody wants, didn't go to the right market. And I said, no, we have to change something. And that's how we put in place the accelerator program for University of Lausanne first and then Geneva, just to help students to understand what people want. And especially that they should not develop what nobody wants.
Okay.
And that's really what I am telling my students. Say, I want to do something. I say, okay. And then I develop a new, let's say, a new theory, which is about egopreneur and ecopreneur. The egopreneur is people that say, I want to develop something. And the ecopreneur say, I found a problem I want to solve. And guess who is going to be successful? So it means that when you find a problem, and then you know that somebody wants to do that. So that's what I teach at the university and the accelerator, just to know if it is a problem. And we are using, the type of methodology of the 4 steps to epiphany, from customer discovery, customer validation, and so on. That's what we teach. And that's how we make. And as I am developing this project in Africa, so we go and implement the project, and then you have the theory, the practice, and then you turn about applying what you have learned, and we come with new problem, with new theory, and that's how the practice started. And as I am also working in as a jury member in some of this international, business thing, you see a lot of things. So maybe I am a jury, maybe I read 500 business plan a year. So
let me stop you there if you don't mind, and go back to something you just said. You're talking about working in Africa. How does it differ in your coaching practice and your teaching when you teach Europeans, or when you teach Africans, or you teach Asians? Are the methods different in any way?
The methods, no. The practice, yes.
Okay. And can you explain how that differs?
It's just about, for example, I take a country in Asia, which is Bangladesh. Okay. So Bangladesh is an Islamic country, and where the place of the women are very special. So when I say in Europe, in my class, I start my class, I give a tool and I say, now you go outside and interview people. So here and in the US, they will go outside, go to the bus station and speak to people. Mm-hmm. This is something you cannot do in Bangladesh. You cannot speak to people in the street. A woman cannot
speak to strangers in the streets.
Speak to stranger, and it's a lot. And the way you will ask people something. So in the behavior, it will be different. And also, for example, when on the culture and have in Bangladesh the same another little story. So I was coming to give a course in a place, and so I was in time. And being in time, being in advance, because people, they have, we call it African time, if you say 8 a.m., they will come at 9. So then I was there, and it was a little boy coming, the tea boy, and he said, would you like a cup of tea? And I said, no, thank you. And he came 10 seconds after, here, your cup of tea. And so when we entered in the conference, and so the president of is everything okay, blah, blah, blah. And I said, no. And I say, why? Because, the little boy asked me if I wanted a cup of tea. I said, no. And he was taking me this cup of tea. And he said, you were not happy? I said, no, because I said no. So for me, a European, I know that the kids, he doesn't know what he said because he's not speaking English. He was told to say this sentence and to take the cup of tea. And I said,
which country was this? Sorry, in which country?
Bangladesh.
In Bangladesh also.
Yeah. And because it was really different. And so I was explaining to people, for us European, when we say no, we want to be heard as no. And when we say yes, we want to be heard as yes. And so I told them, tell me no, that I will be in confidence with your yes. And we were developing, a program for body shopping in IT. And then the people get crazy because the people in India and in Bangladesh will always say yes, even if they have no idea of what you have asked. And that's working with this different culture. You have to know that people say yes, yes. You have to say, what do you mean by yes? And that's the way you have to repeat, and to be sure that when they told you something, it's really what they understood what you said. And so it takes more time to be sure that the person you are working with, we know what we say. And that's what you have to learn. When you travel, that's what you have to learn. If the people in front of you, how they behave, when they understand, when they don't understand, when they do something they want to do, when they do something they don't want to do, and all these kind of things.
That's a wonderful example, and you gave in Bangladesh. Can you give some other example of when you've worked with people in other parts of Asia or Africa?
So it's the same thing in Africa. The same thing. As I am an older woman, okay, I come in a room, everybody will listen to me, even if they don't. And it means that if in Africa, in a lot of African countries, what is important, what makes you an important person is your age. So it means that when you work with people, and especially in computer, in digital area, where it's the young people that know most of the thing and not the older, some of the young people can't say to the older people that it's what they have done is wrong, because you cannot say that to an older person. And when you enter a room, you are first to go to the older person.
To greet people, you mean?
Greet people. And also when you start, as you say in Africa, more or less, you cannot say, hello, how are you? Can we start? You have to ask, how is the family? And how is that? And so you take 10 minutes just to say nothing. And if you are working in Germany, and if you start asking the people, how is your family? They look at you, say, we are professionals. So it's all this behavior, this culture you have to learn to be able to it's about colors, the type of colors you are going to wear. If I am wearing white in India, they think somebody in my family just dye, so they come, I'm so sorry. So it's just about the usage of the color, the length of, for the woman, the length of what I am wearing, you know, to cover. If I'm working in an Islamic country, I have to cover my head. So it's all these kind of things that you have to understand about the time. When you say to people, so I'm coming back from Burkina Faso, and I said to the people, because I was leaving for the airport, I say, okay, I see you at 10 a.m. and the other one at 12. Of course, the first one came at 10 to 12, and then we have only 10 minutes. And they say, yes, but I say, yes, but the time. So this African time is just that you have to say people, and when I'm teaching, for example, and I teach in entrepreneurship, and I call them that they are, for example, when they are going to look for money, you know, money raising, I say, you know, if you come 2 hours late in front of your investors, if you're African, that will not help you. So you have to behave like the people hope, because the money you will be as you will have the people from the Silicon Valley, the people from Europe, and you looking for the same money, and you cannot say, I'm a poor African and I am late, and doesn't matter. It doesn't. So it means that when I am starting my course, I start what we have in Switzerland, which is called quart d'heure vaudois, which is 15 minutes delay. So I start my course 15 minutes delay maximum, and I start it, even if it is only 2 persons in the room. And when the others are coming, say, can we go back? Say no. So the second day, they are on time. And people say, you don't, you have to adapt to local culture. Say no, because they have to behave to be internationally recognized, which is a little different. After my course, I will behave as a local. But during my course, they have to learn international way of making business.
That's fascinating. Yes. And I know the Swiss are extremely punctual. A previous guest said, if you're invited to dinner in Switzerland at 7 o'clock, you literally arrive on the dot at 7 o'clock, not at 7:05 and not 5 before 7, but all guests arrive absolutely at 7 o'clock.
Yeah, that's why we have watches, you know, that's
why you have watches and invented them, right? Effectively. Yes. That's great.
And it's also a question of confidence, you know, when you say to somebody, come at 7, and he come at 7:30, it means that you have no respect for you. Right. And it's a question of confidence. So I am using this on time Switzerland, and more or less everything in Switzerland still is on time, even the train, the plane, but the train still, just to be about confidence and respect.
It's fascinating. Let's talk about the entrepreneurial climate, both in Switzerland and Europe in general, Switzerland, in Europe, and in the other countries in which you teach. In the United States, entrepreneurism is very highly valued and very highly respected. And the climate for entrepreneurism is very well developed in terms of marketing and finance and so forth, and venture capital. In Europe, there's a weaker tradition of entrepreneurship. It certainly exists now, and it's quite strong now, especially among younger people. But traditionally, it's been weak. So how does this pose any obstacles when you're teaching entrepreneurship in other countries in terms of marketing and attracting talent and establishing credibility and financing and so forth?
So I will say it's something about the US culture of entrepreneurship. It's something that the first one, I say it's behavioral. You know, Americans, they are less afraid to take risk and fail. In Europe, it's impossible. You know, you cannot fail. And if you fail, this is impossible. So a lot of people will not try because they are afraid of failing. So that's the first one. The second entrepreneurial, let's say, problem is just when you want to develop a business, you are going to work for your market. Usually you develop something for a specific market. Mm-hmm. So for example, in the US, you have more or less 350 million inhabitants. You have one language, you have no border, It means that when you are going to have a market in something, you may go from the eastern coast to the Pacific coast, and you have the same behavior, the same project, the same behavior. I mean, you can find the same problem. Here in Europe, it's totally different. And especially, so I take Switzerland, which is in the middle of Europe, but which is not in the European Union. It means that in Switzerland, we are more or less 8 million people. And these 8 million people, we have, 3 official languages, 4 national languages. And when we teach, we are using the English. It means that if you want to develop something for the French-speaking market, it means 20% of the population. It means that you will develop a product for 1.5 million inhabitants. Because if you want to develop after for the German-speaking market, then you have to make the marketing, the packaging, everything in another language. So it means that make barrier about marketing. And in Europe, of course, if you go in Italy, they speak Italian. If you go in Hungarian, they will speak Hungarian, Dutch, and so on. So it means that each market will have the specific way of behavior because we don't have a unique common language. But in the same time, advantage of Switzerland, of having foreigners and having different languages, it helps us to test something in different languages. So a lot of companies are coming in Switzerland to test, for example, marketing product, because they know that they will have different behavior, French, German, Italian, some international, and as they can test, marketing behavior, as some of them test also in Israel for the same reason, because in Israel, you have people coming from a lot of different countries with a lot of different habits, and in a small country, you can test behavior. So that's something. So that's for the market. And on the entrepreneurship, so in Switzerland, what we have something important. We are the country with the where we feel the most patents.
Most patents.
Yeah, the patents.
Right.
It means that we have the difference between entrepreneurship and patent is a little different. Because you can put a patent without being entrepreneur. So the entrepreneurial, that's my definition of entrepreneurship. My definition of entrepreneurship is answering a need of a customer that is not existing. It means giving a new product, a new services to somebody. This is, for me, entrepreneur, make a new solution to an existing problem. So in Switzerland, that was not very easy. And when you have that, due to the small market, it's complicated. But what we have in Switzerland, we will have entrepreneurs that will develop the product, but after they will leave for a country where they can have the money and they will have the market. So we are very good in emerging startups, but after they leave for bigger markets.
Makes a lot of sense, of course. Yes.
But that our taxes, and then they develop in other countries.
Exactly. You also are involved in training entrepreneurs and coaching business and so forth. What makes your training and your coaching methods or practices different from those of other professionals?
So it's very easy. I am always against their project. I never, ever believe what they do. I say, I don't believe in your product. I don't believe in your situation. And next week for training, I want you to have interviewed 50 people. And after you come back. So you have to convince me that I was wrong. So that's my way of coaching. And they say, and the people I'm coaching, they say that I will always say, I don't care what you want to sell. I just want to know what your customers are going to buy. So this is on my way. But especially we are using tools that have been developed at University of Lausanne. So maybe you know about the business model canvas, the value proposition canvas that have been invented in Lausanne by Alex Osterwalder and Yves Pigneur. So we are using tools for each part of of the entrepreneurship journey, from the empathy map to the persona Canva, to the value proposition Canva, to the pitch deck, to all the things. There are tools where we are going to use it. So it's very structured, coming from my computer background, and you have to feel it. And especially, we are making a lot of importance of testing business idea. So I told you about when we were,
right?
Yeah, because when we were launching, the satellite, just to make the testing scenario, it's the same for the entrepreneurs. I want them to test each of their ideas and and after, when they met the test, they go. I don't want them to start. I want to have everything on the paper about the interview they made, about the minimum viable product, the proof of concept, I don't know what, but they have to make interview getting out of this building. And it's not something that I teach. It has been taught by other people. Get out of the building, okay?
Right.
Which is, and that's the way I'm teaching differently. And the people in my course at university, so they have 15 minutes theory, and after they have to go. And people say, we can leave, madam. I say, yes, and I want to see you in half an hour. So, they are totally astonished that they have to leave the class and to come back with the interview. So that's the way and the same, and that's where I have problem in some countries, because when I want people to interview people in countries where you don't speak to people in the street, like China, like in Malaysia, where you cannot do that, then you have to find, another way to speak with the people, and sometimes you don't have your, people, your customers close to you. So that makes, situation, if you want to work on the timber project, then you have to make 200 kilometers to interview the people in the Cameroon forest. I mean, not so easy.
Very interesting. When you are training entrepreneurs, do you change your advice according to the industry or the country? You gave some examples just now about China and Malaysia.
Of course. In fact, what we do in entrepreneurship, it's about reality check. So of course, it will not be the same situation depending on the country, depending on the legislation, depending on the law, depending on the electricity, depending on all these kind of things. For example, I am giving now a training of the trainer in Ghana. And so it's online training. And I was explaining to the people that I want absolutely to finish the training before end of May. And people say, why are you in the hurry? I say, I want to finish the training before the rainy season, because when it will be raining, we don't have any more Wi-Fi. So, it's all about this kind of thing. So people tell, oh, but in Africa, they have sun, so they can have solar panel. I say, yes, but we have dry season and rainy season. Rainy season is 3 months where it's rain every day, 1 meter water. So about the solar panel, it will not work. So it's a lot of things like that you have to understand how the country works and what is the behavior of the people, what is the law. In Africa, a lot of companies I will say not companies, because that's where the problem. A lot of projects we are working with are informal companies. It means that they are not registered. And as they are not registered, they don't pay taxes, so the government don't have money to help the startup to have, right? So you have, a vicious circus, and just to help the people like that. So of course, if we want to develop, for example, banana products, for example, in Burkina Faso, where they don't have banana, it's coming from Ghana, then it will be different. Or you will work, for example, the only place in Africa where you can have coffee, real coffee, it's in Rwanda, because they have the plants and they know how to roast the coffee. In the other country, they send to Europe the green coffee, which is roasted in Europe, and what they receive something like Nescafe. So they don't know what is the real taste of a real coffee. And when you work on chocolate, for example, I was working on chocolate products in Ivory Coast, and people say, oh, okay, we are going to sell chocolate but it's for people that are ill, for young people, the babies, and you are like that, me coming from the country of chocolate, I say, no, adults are drinking coffee, we are eating chocolate, we are drinking chocolate on the afternoon, and say, it's a market there. I say, yes. So, and so you start to explain to them how is the market. So for them, it was a revolution to understand that they can sell chocolate and to drink chocolate, not only for kids. Because for them, it was just, what was the advertisement for Nestle, Chocapi for the kids before going to school. And they were thinking this is the only population that can drink hot chocolate are children.
Fascinating.
So that's how you explain things that, okay, in your country, this is that, but in other countries, this is like that. And as I am traveling from Eastern Africa to Western Africa, the traditions are different, the way are different. And that's very interesting. So of course I adapt. You cannot sell winter shoes in, I don't know where, in Nigeria, they will not need them. So it's, and everything also, for example, another example I am using with shoes, it's just that you cannot have summer shoes, winter shoes, you will not sell them in the same country. The place where you will have snow in Africa, it's Uganda, Kenya, where you will have the snow, but you will not have snow in Benin or in Senegal. So, Africa is a very big place. And also for the size, if you are selling shoes to Pearl women living in Senegal, the Pearl women are more or less 1.90 meters, so they will have shoe size, European size 42. And if you want to sell shoes like you have in China, where the women's shoe is 34, then, you have to adapt to the countries. And if I have a 37 European size, if I want to sell my size, in which country which is going to be successful? So that's, with this example, I'm explaining to the people, you have to adapt to local market, to local condition, to culture, to ethnical places. The color for beauty foundation for women will not be the same color in Norway and in Africa.
Sorry, the color of what, please?
Foundation,
foundation, like face foundation.
Face foundation, that will not be the same colors.
Right.
So you have to adapt to the country where you are going to work.
For makeup, yes.
Makeup, for example, or also that's something that people will not eat in your country.
Right.
In Africa, you will eat insects. And if you speak about other animals that we eat in Europe, say, how can you eat that? And when we say, how can you eat that? So that's it's the culture which is coming in this way.
What about women entrepreneurs? When you're training them, does that pose any special issues compared to men entrepreneurs?
So women entrepreneurs is the same problem everywhere. They have lack access to education, to financing. They have to take care of the kids. It's a lot of things. But in the same time, when we develop specific women entrepreneurship, we know that if you give microcredit to women, it will be successful. And if you give it to men, it will be less successful. And especially because the women, they develop a kind of mindset which is together. For example, in Africa, you have something which is called tontine, a tontine. And a tontine is a kind of, like a piggy box where people put money. And when one of the women needs the money, so they catch the calabash and you are using the money for them. And after you go back. And we are putting in place electronic tontine that the woman helps them together. So in some countries, for example, like in Ghana, for example, all the wax, the fabrics, it's in the hand of the woman. It's no man in the fabric business. You don't have any men.
You mean selling or making? Manufacturing or selling?
Both, because it's just, the African tissue we say, which is wax, it's imported or from Holland or from China. So they import this material. And after they are making the dresses, they are making that. So all this business belongs to women.
Mm.
And
Very
we call them the mama Benz, because when they have money, they buy a Mercedes Benz. So that's why they call them mama Benz.
It's very interesting. I noticed in Oman, in the markets, the fish sellers are all men. The fishermen and the fish sellers are men, whereas in other countries they would be women, and it's because they assume that men should not be in that kind of commercial proximity with women.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, yeah.
But in some countries, it could be either that if the women are buying the fish, then it will be the woman in the market.
Right. But in Oman, it's the men buying the fish for the family, which is very...
So that's all what you have, this culture, and also what we have for women entrepreneurship, depending on the countries. In some countries, girls cannot go to school when they have their period, so they have to stay somewhere. So it means that on a 1 month of school, they will not be there during one week. So if you do that a lot of time, and after, the girls doesn't go, and after some of them are married very, very early, 13 years old. So then you have this kind of businesses. So the challenge for the woman is the same quite everywhere, which is that if you are a woman, people are asking you, what are you? Even me, when I'm getting money, people say, who is going to take care of the kids? Why don't they ask them then? I mean, and if I have no kid, so it's really that what we see in entrepreneurship, especially when you look for money, if you are, for example, a PhD in chemistry or in biology, and you say, I am the CEO of that, I have developed that, and that, people will not ask you about kids. But if you are a normal woman, just wanted to develop a normal business, so they start to ask, how are you going to make the business? Who is going to take care of the kid? Who is going to cook? And you are like that, it's men can also do that. So it's really something that people think women will not be able to do something. That's a biais for investors.
And in your own trainings, you use the example of if a woman or a young girl has her period, she can't be in the class. Do you have some way for her to learn the lessons or recapture the lessons?
So it depends on the country. It depends on some countries where the others are training them, and in other countries, they don't care. For example, in Uganda, we are putting a lot of works on that, just to try to change the tradition. Just the girl that if they go, it was the same in Europe 100 years ago. They were thinking that if the woman had the period, the cows will not be able to make the milk. It was a lot of ideas. So depending on the country, if they have the way that they can follow the classes with the other girls, it can be. But in usually when you have this tradition, it means that the country is not so developed that they can use that, let's say, a technology. And the same thing during the pandemic, a lot of kids.
Sorry, during the pandemic, you mean?
Yes, it was a lot of people that couldn't go to school. So
Right.
It means, for example, in Burkina Faso, we made the class with the radio instead because they don't have a computer. So the class was made with the radio instead during that. So you find some situation, and in some countries, you have digital solutions that are more, let's say, more higher than what we have in Europe. For example, in Switzerland, paying with your phone is not something which is normal. And if you go, for example, in Kenya, everybody is paying with the phone. And when you come with your phone, and people say, first time I came in Kenya 10 years ago, I was looking for money for the driver. And they say, why do you want money? I say, to pay the taxi driver. I said, no, but you have to have M-Pesa. And when you come in Switzerland, where you have something that was developed by the bankers, not for the user, but by the bankers. And we have something which is called Twit, which is linked to your phone number, but you can't choose your bank account. It means that if I have my professional bank account and my personal bank account, I cannot decide on which count I'm going to take the money from. And we are speaking that, and people say, no, it's too complicated in Switzerland. I say, yes, but we can do that in Kenya. Okay, so so that's what I think fantastic, working with emerging countries, because they can what we call, the frog. So now I forgot. It's about frog lab, because you come from nothing to the last and the best techniques. And that's it's leapfrog. It's called leapfrog, and it's like that. Yeah, yes. Leapfrog, because you come from absolutely nothing to the last technology. And that's what I found absolutely fascinating working in Africa, is that you have this situation. In some, working, the finance, all what is about finance in Africa is going absolutely perfectly well. But e-commerce is not going so well, because, it's no transportation. Then, you can, because it's no, for example, when we started the first e-commerce in Nigeria, first, to have an e-commerce, you need first to have an address to say where it should be delivered. And in this country, you don't have address. So then it means you don't have a street number or something. So you know that you are using your phone and say, location, I am here. So you just say. And after, so you have to be delivered. So no post, so you have to make what we call taxi brousse, It means that it goes from a place to another one, which is taken by the bus. And then that's the problem. After, you need to pay. So to put in place your e-commerce, you need to have these three problems solved: location, then transportation, and paying statement. And in 10 years ago, Visa, MasterCard didn't want it to have payment coming from Africa, with the IP. So we had to develop a PayPal for Africa in Nigeria. That was the first one that was used, because it's a lot of countries that you cannot use credit card. Like it's the case now in Ethiopia, but for other reasons. So actually, the Ethiopian government doesn't allow people to use credit card.
That's fascinating. Amazing. Is there anything else you'd like to add before we close?
So what I will say to add is, something. I have two quotes. Genius is 1% inspiration and 99% perspiration, which is from Thomas Edison. That's something. And on the entrepreneurship, it's something that I will add is always look what people are looking for. What people they have pain, and just go to solve their pain. People think, I want to do that, my egopreneur and my ecopreneur. And you will be successful just by looking what people want.
Very fascinating. Well, thank you so much, Nadine. This is a wonderful conversation with Nadine Reichenthal from Switzerland, and greatly appreciate your speaking with us. And for our audience out there, look forward to speaking with you, and you're joining us next week. Thank you.
Thank you.